going to rank all the Harry Potter movies. We're going to go through them. What? And then we're going to talk about the Hogwarts Legacy hullabaloo. Why is this important? Because people are being shamed and bullied into not playing a video game that is actually made for children. A video game that I played last night. I played the video game. I quite enjoyed it. I've always loved the Harry Potter franchise. I think it's the best version of a theme park based on a prominent intellectual property. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, both at Universal Hollywood and Universal Florida, are fantastic. It was what I had hoped Star Wars would have been. And I just love the Harry Potter films. I think they stuck the landing with the films, although I would say the final two films based on the last book are not my favorite in the series.
I would agree.
And I've just always loved this franchise. It made JK Rowling, the author, who lived out of her car at some point. She had a lot of personal struggles. Made her a billionaire, and she's very protective of the franchise. She also has opinions, and your opinions may not 100% align with her. I know mine don't. And not having to do with the most infamous opinion that she has. A lot of my opinions don't line up with her. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. A lot of my opinions don't 100% line up with Alan Ng. Doesn't mean we can't be friends and coworkers. And the next Siskel and Ebert, or Bert and Ernie, as some of you are saying in the chat. That's what you said, your words, not mine. But I have concerns that people are taking this seriously. I wanted to bring on a special guest to talk to us about it. It's Christian Toto from Hollywood in Toto. Christian, how's it going today?
It is going so well. I try to clutter up my background to kind of, do what you guys do. So I did the best I could.
It's got a lot organized. I don't call that clutter. I mean,
my God, that's great. Are they all alphabetized?
They are by groups, like A's and B's and C's, but not like A, B, or, not like meticulously, but just enough to I can find stuff when I need to find stuff.
Well, I have gone so far as to go, these are the music documentaries. These are documentaries. No, I'm serious. I'll go by, I want to live in a video store, but I'm not sure how much you've heard about, or what are your thoughts and feelings? I want to get from both you and Alan. How do you feel just about the Harry Potter franchise in general?
It's funny. I only read a smattering of the books, but I think the franchise as a series is shockingly consistent. I think it got richer as it went along. I think all the actors got better, and they brought in all these ringers, these great English actors to play the significant parts. So I have almost no problem with the series. I thought the two-part conclusion, the first part was kind of meh, but the rest of it I thought was a home run. And I think, given that there were different directors and different stories, and you've got kids growing up and maturing, I think they handled it all beautifully. It's about as good as you could possibly expect from Hollywood. I think it's kind of my highest praise.
Chris, you're muted.
I would agree with you. The fact that they stuck with the main cast throughout the franchise is amazing. Alan, what are your thoughts on Harry Potter?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. Compared to like Lord of the Rings, it's a children's series, and you got to kind of weight it as such. But Christian, you're right. Just the fact that the heavy hitters they did bring in, even swapping out Dumbledore was, it was sketchy at first, but I forget the actor's name, but he more than fulfilled the role of Dumbledore. But there's the depth in it is the series is not that deep, but again, it's for children. And so my daughter and I, we certainly enjoyed watching it together. And I think it means more to me having watched it with my kid versus not having a kid to kind of experience it that way. But yeah, it's just amazing how well the entire series held up from beginning to end, which is something you don't see that often in any franchise, so to speak.
Well, I would say that I agree with both of you. It's just like, and my kids grew up with it. They read the books. they read all of the books. My kids kind of grew up like the characters in the movies, and I'm only familiar with the movies. People have really praised the books. I kind of experienced it through my kids, and that was what was great about it. Going to see every Harry Potter movie was an event, and it was fantastic. And
Yeah.
now we have this.
Yeah, what
Sorry?
you don't hear though is you don't hear people saying, "Oh, the the film missed this, the film missed that," or the I think there's equal weight in terms of the love of the books and the love of the series, and there's not a lot of controversy, by what was left out or what was put in and altered.
I think when a series is good when you just don't hear the backlash. Like the Lord of the Rings movies, the original trilogy, are so good and so beloved. There's no real controversy. They exist. We love them. We go back to them, and that's it. But then the Hobbit films and the Star Wars films, we're still fighting over them because they weren't that good.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Jackson took a lot of liberties with Lord of the Rings, and that didn't seem to bother anybody, which is amazing.
First of all, Christian, I think that is a great gauge right there. That's a barometer right there. We don't talk about the Harry Potter films in the same way that we talk about Star Wars. Star Wars for me is the biggest the Star Wars sequels that Disney made are the biggest missed opportunity in movie history. You couldn't take the three lead Han, Luke, and Leia and put them in one scene together. You couldn't do that. And maybe
all right, everyone take a drink.
I know. I bring it up a lot because it is to me, that's reason enough to fire Kathleen Kennedy, is for that alone. It would be like making sequels to Harry Potter and not putting, Ron, Hermione, and Harry in a scene together. They're the three why did they not do that? There must have been discussion how someone was asleep at the wheel, but this is sort of the franchises we're frustrated with because we saw the potential was there. Those are the things we talk about endlessly, and stuff like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, we don't really talk about it because they were very satisfying experiences. And I will say, I actually started the comment here. If we had to rank them, Wizard Shack took my rankings. Prisoner of Azkaban is the best one to me. It's the one with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
It's the one where they're flipping time. Who is that? Cuarón directed that one. Is it Alfonso Cuarón?
Yeah.
Cuarón directed that one. Goblet of Fire, Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Deathly Hallows Part 2, Half-Blood Prince, Deathly Hallows Part 1, Order of the Phoenix. I would say yes, Order of the Phoenix is the weakest one. That's the one with Robert Pattinson in it. But yeah,
no, that was Goblet of Fire.
What is it? Oh, that's right. Okay, so was it Goblet of Fire?
Yeah, that's the competition.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. Put that last. We'll flip it around. All right. It's fine. But yeah, that seems like about what. Do you have a ranking, or do you even care? Do you have a favorite one, Christian?
I don't. I just think overall they were so satisfying. I don't see any significant missteps. To me, the first two were more childlike. I think Chris Columbus was the director. That's what he does, and it was fine. And it was a good way to kind of get the franchise up and running. But I just think it got richer ever since. And I think, give those actors credit. They could have let the series go to their heads. They could have kind of devolved. They could have gotten more precious. But I think they kind of grew with the series in the way that you wanted them to, the way you needed them to have that series to be so successful. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm enmeshed in it enough to give an official ranking. You guys are better than that. But I just think overall, you really can't go wrong. And I'm amazed by it. And listen, you bring in John Cleese in any capacity. That's always a good sign.
Yeah. Alan, do you have thoughts, your favorite films? And if you had to rank them, I told you my favorite, Azkaban.
Yeah. I mean, if I did it by which one I saw the most, it would be Sorcerer's Stone. And I tend to give the first one a lot of weight just because, that first one is so important. An entire series can fail as to whether you got the momentum going right, honored the source material right. And the first one really did that. And also you're dealing with children. And this is a testament to the entire series. I mean, all three actors have pretty much grown up and been normal people. They've never been in tabloids in the wrong ways. And that says something, I think, about the care they took in having children so young be in their series and then be able to bring them to the final ending without burning them out.
Well, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, there aren't any stories of these kids, being difficult on the set or going off and having some, just bad outcome as adults.
Mhm.
They've all been, and for the most part, when you hear stories about the cast of Harry Potter, they all got along and really like each other. I mean, they kind of grew up. I mean, it was
Yeah.
school for them. But I'm trying to bring up some stories here. Alan,
I'll just say we just saw Rupert Grint in Knock at the Cabin,
Mhm.
and yeah, he's playing a redneck racist, but
right.
you know, it was pretty good.
Yeah, but there's a controversy related to this. Let me see. I'm going to share a screen here if I can do that. And there are multiple stories about this. They're all over the internet. But that's why I wanted to bring you on, Christian, was to talk about this because I have concerns about this. I have concerns. I think that
As well you should.
I mean, you know, look, I've seen the lunacy that has come from the mob on social media, and this one is particularly disconcerting. And this is if you play Hogwarts Legacy, a video game widely available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation. It's a video game for kids. Yes, I started playing it. And there people are being shamed into not playing the game. What are your thoughts on this? I'm going to zoom in on this. I don't know if you can see it. This is just one of many stories about this. Hogwarts Legacy video game controversy boycotts and JK Rowling's comments on transgender community explained. Christian, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, I've been covering cancel culture for a while. And one of the things I've noticed is that if you fight back, if you kind of punch the bully in the nose, they often kind of go away. I think Adam Carolla is a great example. He's a comedian. His policy is, I don't apologize for jokes. And they ignore him now. They go nowhere near him. And it's interesting because with JK Rowling, it's actually different because she keeps fighting back and she keeps punching back and she keeps holding her ground. And it only makes the resistance against her stronger. They loathe her for her comments on the trans community. And she's been upfront about saying, I love people who are trans and I love the trans community. I just have very specific disagreements with sort of the activist base of that group. And they will not let her go. Anything tied to her. I don't know if you heard about there's a trans activist who would rebind the books, the Harry Potter books, to remove her name and then resell them because you don't want to get triggered by reading the Harry Potter books with Rowling's name in them. So it's gotten that cartoonish. And I think this new game example is just the latest step. They won't let it go. They won't stop fighting. And anything with her name attached with the Potter name is fair game. And it's shocking to see. And the fact that it hasn't burned out, it's only grown brighter. It scares even me because I cover this stuff, but it's really powerful, and they mean business too.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the bullying. I mean, bullying to kids these days, in particular, online bullying, is something that affects them in real life. Fortunately, my kids are older. You know, they're in their 20s, and they this doesn't affect them. It's like they're also not particularly excited about anything social media. They think most people on social media are kind of crazy. But kids of a certain age being bullied online is just like being bullied in real life, and it can have it's affecting. So when I see these, you know, I just want to play a video game. I just want to relax, enjoy myself. And I will point out that I spent most of yesterday, like when I played the game, designing my character, you know, and the first level is always like they're getting you used to the controls, so it becomes intuitive. But I did notice that you could create, say, a female character with a male voice. That's an option in the game. I mean, you know, it's available. You could create a male character that has pink hair and talks like a girl. You can do all of that. That's all possible and available in the game. So look, kudos to them. It's something I'm not going to do, but like the fact that option's available, you know what? I applaud that. It should be an option in the game. I just wish they had more variety with how you design your character. But Alan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I agree with you in the sense of it's the bullying that I hate. I've always hated it. You know, I talk a lot about, you know, when I was growing up as a evangelical, we were the bullies for a very long time, and even then I hated it. And to kind of see it come back now, you know, to be afraid to give your opinion, to be afraid to even ask a question. You know, what JK Rowling is being accused of being, you know, 10 years ago, everyone was that.
Mhm.
You know, no one disagreed 10 years ago with what JK Rowling said. It's now. You know, it's someone flipped a switch, decided that we're going to redefine what the truth is, and then we're going to attack people who still hold on to it. And it is scary. And you didn't bring it up, but there's a website that's logging in every streamer that streams Hogwarts Legacy. When was the last time some authoritarians got a list together? And I don't know. Has it ever happened? Who knows? But
Does it ever end well?
it
No.
never ends
Right.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whenever people are making lists of
Mm.
people that are playing a game as if they're a bad person, it's terrible. We've got a couple super chats in here, and I'm going to get to those. They're kind of off topic, but I promise you, Derek Rosenfeld and Shang Hu will get to your comments. But I have specifically comments about this topic I want to get to.
Chris, kind of interesting.
Yes,
Two quick
please,
things.
please.
Yeah. First of all, about 15, I'd say, give or take years ago, I feel like our culture got serious about bullying. It became a major issue. It's always been around, but it became a major thing that we're going to fight. We're going to address it. We're not going to let it happen anymore. Zero tolerance. I think that was generally a good thing, that we didn't take it seriously enough. And now it's rampant, and everyone looks the other way as it's happening. Secondly, I've been rediscovering South Park with my son. He's 14, and he really loves the irreverent humor. And every episode, I'm half laughing and half thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they got away with that, whether it was then or now, and more specifically now. So last night I watched an episode about how Mr. Garrison becomes a woman, Mrs. Garrison. He gets a sex change. I cannot describe the episode because it is so outrageous and so offensive to 2023's sensibilities that I don't know how it hasn't been retroactively canceled. And the most ironic thing about it is watching on the South Park website, and they give you like maybe 5 or 6 episodes you can watch for free. And I was 2/3 the way through the episode, and all of a sudden it said, this episode is no longer available in your area.
Oh.
Now that could be just coincidence, but I just thought,
Oh no.
wow. I actually took a screenshot of it too. I was so shocked. It it describes Mrs. Garrison and how she wants to have her monthly visit and she wants to have a baby. She wants to have an abortion. And the doctor says, well, we can't because you're not a woman. We just made it look like you're a woman. And it was an argument that is it's considered so foul today in certain circles that I couldn't believe I was watching it in 2023. I was amazed by it. I mean, if people hear about it, I think they will try to cancel it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Should I bother to check if it's on HBO Max?
I would, it's funny. Mine just ran out, my subscription. You absolutely should. I think you can Google it pretty easily, but yeah, you should.
Yeah, that's every time I hear about a South Park episode that has something controversial, that just goes to the top of the list, which I wonder if,
every South Park episode.
But I wonder if like South Park gets a pass. There's certain things that get a pass. South Park, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Watch the very first episode of that show. There's some blatant language you cannot say anymore, but it is in the very first episode. I think It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is brilliant. But it's what do they call that term? I think it's called presentism. It's when you look at something from the past through a present lens, and like when I was a kid growing up, I used to watch, this is in the 70s, I would watch movies from the 30s and 40s. One of the things that was like a recurring theme was, in order to calm down a hysterical woman, you just had to slap her a couple times. That's all. You just had to slap her. But as a kid, when I was watching that, I was like, oh, wow, that's shocking. I didn't know that's what they used to do. I just thought in my head, that's something they used to do, because I never saw it in my life, right? But I saw it in these movies in the 30s and 40s. These are mostly like grizzled, hard-boiled detective film noirs. But and I think that's just always going to be the case. I mean, even working on this documentary, Attack of the Doc, I'm looking at things that I did and others on Attack of the Show, and I'm like, yeah, we probably wouldn't do that joke anymore. I still think it's funny. I'm not going to apologize for any of the jokes or anything I said in Attack of the Show. But that was the humor at the time, and like, okay, some will land now and some will not, and that's fine. But we have the chat is kind of on, I would say the chat's on fire right now with comments. And I want you to stick around as long as possible, Christian. I know we have a guest coming on, a director coming on at around 2:45, but we've got other topics we're going to tackle.
Okay.
Let's go to the comments here, and then jump in if you have anything to remark on here. Rida Ibn Muhammad says, I love the series. I wish I went to Hogwarts. My favorite is probably Half-Blood Prince. Everybody's got a favorite. Kelpie says, I really admire JK Rowling. Even if I don't always agree with her politics, she sticks to her principles. And this is a thing that I think is really disheartening that a lot of people don't get. Like, among my friends or in my family, none of us agree 100% politically on everything. Does anyone?
Well, there's something bigger here, Chris, because you could say, well, she's got all the money in the world, so of course she's going to stand her ground. Well, you know who has a lot of money? Scarlett Johansson. But when the cancel culture mob came for her, she buckled. And when Stephen King got attacked because he said that artistic merit matters maybe more than diversity, he buckled. So, you can be the most richest, most famous person in the world. And if you don't have the spine, you buckle. And so I give her tons of credit. She has not backpedaled a step. And I think that's because she believes what she believes and thinks what she thinks, and she's got the courage of her convictions. And it doesn't matter about money, because there are many, many famous people who will just bow and wave and do the hostage apology. She has yet to do that. There's no way she's going to do it now.
Yeah, I agree. There's no way she will back down from this. But how do you just dismiss? I mean, I'm sure, first of all, I love the original Star Wars when George Lucas was the caretaker and creator of that franchise. I love George Lucas. If you know anything about his life, I feel like he would be one of the most influential people in cinema, even if he had never made movies, because of the technological advances that he pioneered. But I'm fairly certain George Lucas and I don't line up on everything. So what? Where did this mentality and like, I have a lot of friends, family, whatever. It's just like, oh, you think this? That's not how I don't think any kid should be on social media under the age of 18. That's where I'm at with that stuff. Unless it's highly supervised. But yeah, I've got some. So I don't know. When did we stop getting along or becoming so intolerant?
I don't know. I mean, I'd say the last 5 years has gotten really kind of palpable, but you see it with so many people, and you can have 99% agreement on certain issues, but if that one little thing comes up, it's over. I think Bill Maher's faced this, Joe Rogan as well. They kind of throw them off. Oh, they're conservatives. They're hard right. No, they're pretty left of center, but they've got some complex views. And I'd like to think I've got a few complex views. I'm definitely conservative, but I don't agree on every issue in every way. And I find fault with people on my side. That just seems healthy. I would hate to be kind of doctrinaire, but it's really unhealthy that we go in this direction. And I really, with the work that I do, I support the actors who, I don't care where they are politically, but if they speak up for free speech, if they embrace different arguments, different ideas, or just the idea to have a conversation, that's becoming increasingly rare and more important to really rally around.
The common denominator is having an open mind, the ability to question things, to not immediately accept what you're being told, and to question it and wonder, is this really true or not? I mean, the issues are all there. Climate change. I mean, heaven forbid you should question what we're being taught and told about the climate. And I think that's, you're seeing it with Bill Maher, you're seeing it with a lot of other, what we used to consider liberals, the hardcore liberals, is that, they still have an open mind. We may not agree with them, but they are just the ability that they have to question the woke movement that's going on right now says a whole lot about the woke movement and the dangerous direction it's going in.
If you're not confident in your ideas, you want to shut the other side down because you can't defend yourself. And one of the things that Bill Maher is doing now, which I really applaud, is his podcast is called Club Random. And it's more casual, it's more light. It's just conversations with famous people. But he's really actively looking to speak to people from the right, like Kid Rock and Dave Rubin, and have this great conversation and smoke a little weed and have a few drinks and agree to disagree and just chuckle about things. And I know that sounds like a very simplistic method. It actually matters today. And the fact that Bill Maher's his ideology has been so set in stone for a while, and he's the guy kind of embracing different people and different ideas, just wonderful. And he's funny. So it's good.
Yeah, I miss when freedom of speech was a liberal value. It was something. No, I mean, what
No,
happened?
I totally agree.
What happened? Like that's to me, that is liberal, is free speech. You know. So here we go. More comments here. Amanda Nowicki, who's a member, says, I ignored JK Rowling when she turned all of her characters gay. I will ignore all the adult toddlers on Twitter when it comes to me playing Hogwarts Legacy. In Somatic 101 says 3, 4, and 5 are the best in my opinion. I like 3 because they're teenagers, so they're old enough to understand what's going on and get their feelings for each other. Wizard Shack says there's something nice about the childlike first 2 films. Horror Punk says it feels like another manufactured controversy / psyops surrounding the game for social media clicks and sales, says Horror Punk. I don't know. It's like, I will say this, it has had the Streisand effect, right? Where people are, look, I was mildly aware of the game and I thought, oh, kind of an open world Harry Potter game where you're at Hogwarts, sign me up. And the more I heard about it, I thought, well, I want to try it out for myself. You know, I'm not going to be intimidated by the mob. Cry bully, says Alan Horkin. I would agree. And
yeah, I should mention the episode of South Park that Christian was referring to. It is available on HBO Max. It's
great.
Season 9, Episode 1.
You'll watch it and your jaw will drop. I guarantee it.
I'm watching it. I'm watching it after this stream. Enrico Palazzo for 10 says, can you think of a book that would make a great movie but will never be made because of Hollywood politics? Example, State of Fear by Michael Crichton, which debunks global warming. I don't know. I can't think of a book that would make a good movie I'm sure there's a ton of them, actually. I don't think that the politics in Dune is going to be handled in the same way. I think it's going to be handled differently. They're going to lean into the occupation aspect of it rather than the larger politics. But can you guys think of one?
You know, I would say Tom Clancy novels, if they had actually used the Tom Clancy novels to make those movies.
Cool. Christian, can you think of one?
You know, nothing's coming to mind. I know Andrew Klavan is a great writer and he's got some wonderful books. And I'm sure most of they have certain elements of ideology. Some faith is kind of intermingled there. So I think that's but he's actually spoken about how he was a steadily working screenwriter in Hollywood. And when he started speaking up about his opinions, the phone stopped ringing. So that's how it goes on a very specific kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
More super chats here. Let's get to those. MK Solid 82 says for $4.99 says, still recovering from Chris and Alan not knowing the bricks don't hit back. Quote from Bloodsport. I was bedridden for 3 days. I'm sorry. Bloodsport was not on my.
Yeah, sorry. We don't remember every single movie we ever saw.
There's triggered and then there's bedridden. It's like a new level.
Yeah,
I like it.
That's true. I feel bad now that
I'm very sorry, MK Solid 82. Yeah. Matthew Hammond for $9.99 says, I remember seeing Christian Toto on Big Hollywood. We lost Andrew Breitbart way too soon, but at least he avoided seeing the destruction of his favorite movies. Yeah. What would he say about Hollywood now? Christian.
Oh gosh, Andrew Breitbart was a visionary. I mean, I'm more curious what he would say and what he would do about the media and the culture at large. I mean, I think he'd be aghast what's happening in Hollywood, especially the woke situation. I worked at Breitbart for about 6 months. And I remember a few months in, I clicked on the Drudge Report in the morning and I saw Andrew Breitbart, like 1968 to 2012. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's dead. It was so stunning to me. He was such a fascinating character. And his legacy, in a sense, is I talked to so many people who are artists and maybe they're right of center. And they all have these story. Oh, I met Andrew. Oh, he spoke to me, or he encouraged me, or he said, get into the battle of ideas, create art. But I think what was great about Andrew was he was a happy warrior. He wanted more engagement. He said more voices, not less. So I think he'd be punished by our current culture. And I think he'd have something to do about it in a good way.
I feel like maybe things wouldn't be as bad if he was still around.
That sounds like a big statement, but I don't think I disagree.
Yeah. I mean, he was always out there and he was always engaging the other side. I mean, he created the Huffington Post with Ariana Huffington. That shows you the reach he had within even liberal circles at that time.
Yeah.
Another super chat here from Danger UXO for 20. Thank you so much. Gents, great discussion. Are there any stories, books, articles, etc. of a Hollywood post-McCarthyism? any similarities? Christian, what do you think?
I mean, what we see from Hollywood now is there are a lot of movies about McCarthy era, and you get it. It was embarrassing. It was terrible. It was sort of it repudiated our values as a culture. And I'm thinking in 30, 40 years, Hollywood may be making movies about this period in our culture, and they'll be the bad guys. So I don't know if any stories are out there now. I don't think there will be, but there certainly should be. But I also think when it comes to a cultural moment, you need to kind of have distance. So I think to make one now would be tricky.
Yeah, I have heard from friends of mine who work in Hollywood, screenwriters, whatnot. They say that people are now feeling comfortable enough kind of mocking wokeness openly. Like in offices, they have meetings and whatnot. And finally, I think the discussion is being had. Will there be any real movement?
Yeah.
I don't know. And before we go further, we'll get to your chat questions and comments. Christian, you got to plug your book.
Okay.
Your book is amazing.
Well,
I read
thanks.
the book, and what's great about your book too is you acknowledge people like Gary Beekler from Nerdrotic. You talk about people like Chrissy Mayer. You talk about kind of people on the front lines who've been discussing this stuff. Tell us about your book, and I know it's on Amazon because that's where I bought it.
Yeah, it's called Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. And I'm a conservative guy, and that's why I cover Hollywood. But I really think that my book and the current culture really transcends politics. And some of the people you mentioned, they're not even right or left often. They're just angry and frustrated by what we're going through. And the book kind of details some of the more comical, cartoonish things we've seen over the last couple of years, and has some behind the scenes stuff too. I talked to a guy who worked at Disney, had some shocking stories about that. And then also give some hope and give some signs about what could happen down the road. I also talked to a lot of comedians, and they share their stories. And it's shocking to me when their fellow comedians are often the ones trying to cancel them, get them fired from gigs. But it's very cutthroat. It's very angry, and it's a very scary time. But there is hope. And if I were to revisit the topic in book form, I think there'd be more crazy stories, but also more signs that things are changing a little bit. So like you mentioned with some of your friends behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that it sounds as if there's not that the tide is turning, but there's an acknowledgement, sort of a recognition of this problem. And I don't know if there's been any real study. I know you and I talked about this, the idea that there should be something that exists called the reflection report, which if we're really looking at representation, which I actually believe representation does matter. And I do think diversity, the problem is the way the diversity is defined by certain people is it just means no white people for the most part. That's what it means. It's sort of code for something that means something completely different. But if you look at I know that and we're going to talk about the Oscars in a little bit, but when you look at the Oscars and the history of the Oscars, you can parrot that Oscars so white. But if you look at the history of the Oscars and the number of people, the diverse people that have been recognized, someone did the math, and it's about representative of the population of Black people in the U.S. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
You look like we have more millionaires here, people who are Black or millionaires and are very successful in this country. And you would think they would stand up at some point and say, I've gotten a lot of opportunity here. And I think anyone that becomes successful, you will face struggles. That's it. They're going to be unique to who you are. But there is a narrative that I think is demeaning that we hear over and over. And I don't think it's helpful.
Yeah. I've been tracking your shows. I don't know if you covered this, or maybe you did, but the new Netflix comedy You People with Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy. Not only is it not good, and it made me sad, because it really does capture this cultural moment where everyone is kind of scrambling for victimhood on all sides of the story, and it's not funny, and it's people acting wildly inauthentic. And I think it's one of the biggest problems with the movie. But I think it's like a perfect movie for this age. And I mean that in the least complimentary way.
Well, I'll just say this, that I just know from my personal life, I've struggled with a lot of things in my life. And I feel the only time I've noticed that I've had any change that has progressed me further is when I can be brutally honest with myself about who I am, what my flaws are. And I feel that there are certain communities, if they're able to look at themselves and be brutally honest within those communities, I feel that's when real change will be affected. Until then, they'll just be manipulated by the media. You can read into what I said, whatever you like. I'm just saying that I know when it comes to evolving as a person, personal development, being brutally honest has always been the thing that sort of leveled me up, so to speak, because we are talking about video games. And I think that that's true of a community.
Yeah. Let me add to that in terms of an evolving community. It's the ability to just ask a question, like, are we doing the right thing, or does this make sense, or am I being racist right now? Are we really solving the problem? That's how a community evolves. When you bring up an issue, when you ask a question about one of your core tenets and debate it, and either strengthen that core tenet, or it will evolve it in a way that seems to that will open itself to a broader audience, and we can't do that anymore.
It's a great point. We keep saying we need to have a dialogue, we need to have a conversation about X, and then they put in so many roadblocks and obstacles that you really can't have in a conversation about X because you'll get in trouble. So you just keep with the thinking and the movement going forward. And if there's an issue, if there's a problem, if there's something we need to overcome, you don't get there because we're hemmed in.
We will not solve any of the problems at all that confront our nation and the world unless we learn to just talk to each other respectfully. And I feel that, like, to me, one side was kind of crazy in the 90s, and now it's the other side has gone crazy. And I'll just say that we have not mastered this skill just as a people in general. The speaking to each other respectfully, agreeing on certain facts, it's just disheartening to see, especially the thing that really changed a lot of my opinions about things was seeing people I know be hateful towards those on the opposite side of the aisle politically, like utter hateful. This person didn't do this. This person thinks that. They're a terrible person now. I just, I'm connected with people because we like Star Wars or comic books or nerd stuff. The idea that we would dislike each other because you played a video game, or that's a bad person because they played a video game, is utter ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous.
And I find that when you meet people in person, as opposed to online, a lot of that kind of goes away because you can be kind of combative online, but actually when you meet them and you connect with them and you see eye to eye and you realize you have some stuff in common, and then sort of the conversation maybe gets a little political, then you can hopefully navigate it better because you've had this already significant connection, but it's not always the case.
Yeah. Are you saying that social media changed the national discourse?
I'm saying it might be here to stay, and it does make things slightly worse. I have a friend who I'm very fond of. We have very divergent political opinions, and she's a sweetheart. She's tough as nails, but she's a sweetheart. But I see some of her posts, and I don't recognize who she is. I mean, she could be kind of mean and throw a lot of sharp elbows, but when you meet her, she's a darling, So
it's weird. I feel the same way. Like friends of mine where I'm like, but we've hung out and had dinner and drank, and we've been on panels together at conventions, and we just talk about like Marvel, Star Wars, nerdy stuff, and how excited we are for this or that, or this was terrible, or debate, like, to me, more pop culture debates, just being cruel to people they don't know. I think part of it, like, I grew up in Michigan. A lot of my family, blue collar or military. And I did work for a brief period in a couple of factories as a side job when I was trying to get money for college. It changes your perspective. I think that every teenager should work fast food or work some kind of job just to appreciate people behind the counter, people working service, or something like that. It changes your character. I think it builds character. First of all, it'll convince you, I do not want to be doing this job, even 6 months from now. So I'm going to work hard to get some other job. But it gives you an appreciation for people in those positions. So that to me has always been a red flag. Anyone that treats someone poorly in a service industry is a bad person. that's a little red flag of like, I don't know that we can be friends.
Yeah, we're all parents here. I'm very conscious of the way that I interact with servers at restaurants, and I always extra tip. And my son will say, "You don't need to pay that much or anything." I'm like, I'm a journalist. I make no money, but I'm like, you got to do that. And I want my kids to see what I'm doing and see that relationship. And I actually worked at the Olive Garden for 6 months before my career began. And it's like it's something that sticks with you. You just never let it go. And just that relationship, the back and forth, knowing what they're going through and knowing what you as a customer require and what they're going through as well. It's just super important.